Hi, everybody. Come on in. I am rolling solo today. Cassie is doing other things, so it's just me and you. And hopefully, we can talk about some of the stuff that's going on. And if you guys have anything you want to say, make sure to chime in the comments. Or if you want to jump in, let me know. You can message me for the link and you can come in and say hello. As always, follow all the hollers throughout the state and chip in or subscribe at tnholler.com. That's where you can find us. Make it $10 a month or more, and you get one of these sweet hats that I'm wearing. Really appreciate all the support. I mean, I know I say this every week, but really, really, really do appreciate all the support that you guys have given us in the last almost 2 years now. We've been growing pretty fast, and that's thanks to you guys. The regional haulers are really important, a big part of what we do, and I'm hoping to launch a few more the beginning of next year, and your small dollar monthly donations really make all that happen. Also, keep in mind this week we have a TNDP chairs race forum Wednesday, Thursday night, 7 p.m. CST. We've split them into two groups. These are the people who are vying to be the next chair of the Tennessee Democratic Party. For the first time in 6 years, the chair seat is open. These are all really interesting, good people, very different in their own way, and they all have ideas about which way the party needs to go. If you have any questions, shoot us the questions, thetnholler@gmail.com. We've gotten a bunch of them from you guys already, and we will ask these questions of these people on Wednesday and Thursday night, and you guys can see we're trying to shine some sunlight on the process and let you guys hear from them. You don't actually get to vote for them. There are executive committee members who will vote on the next chair, and those executive committee members were voted or theoretically elected by the people. Not theoretically, they were. There's two from each state Senate district. That's how that works. Also, there was a election this week in the Tennessee Democratic House. The caucus elected Vincent Dixie, Rep. Vincent Dixie, who you might have seen. He was on here with us a few weeks back, and he is now the new caucus chair. That's basically the person who, is the mouthpiece for the caucus for the Democrats. They're in the super minority. He's also, I think, responsible for helping people raise money. And, it's a pretty important position. So congratulations to Rep. Dixie. I know that was a big deal for him. And it'll be interesting to see how things change, if at all. Just to talk about some issues here. That's what we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. We talk about the issues that are going on. There's so much going on. It's hard to even keep up sometimes. So hopefully you get our emails, and we try to give you a twice weekly rundown of everything that's going on. The biggest thing, obviously, we just passed 5,000 deaths in Tennessee. That is a awful landmark to be passing. It's a really sad thing. There are stories all over the place of people passing away. Here's the story in the Tennessean about it. Yes, it's true that most of the people who are passing away are on the older side, but it seems pretty clear that the way that this thing spreads is not only through older people. So the first video I'm going to play is of Representative John Reagan from East Tennessee, and he was basically complaining about how the state of emergency has gone on too long in Tennessee, and why didn't we do something about it sooner?
The state of emergency we're in right now, we're a pregnancy, we would be diapering the baby. If we're sitting here at 10, 12 months out, still having to take immediate action, we've done something wrong.
Yes, they have done something wrong. They've done a lot of things wrong. And it's nice to hear a Republican in Tennessee admit that. What he is seemingly ignoring as this video goes on, we'll see it. When the special session was called in June, Democrats proposed a lot of things that were going to try to help people, from emergency funding for schools to, emergency funding in general to, pushing for a mask mandate, more testing. Republicans vetoed all of it. They killed all of those amendments. And now he's sitting here saying we should have done something.
And I say we collectively, meaning in the General Assembly, no individual, no party. If it still requires immediate action, then we should have foreseen that probability and possibility. 85% of all of the deaths in our state, people over the age of 61. What is the emergency?
I mean, right there, Rep. Reagan is, his rhetorical question, what is the emergency? He's saying that the emergency is only for people over 61, by the way, is not that old. And therefore what? That we shouldn't be concerned about what we're doing, the emergency as far as younger people go. But the problem is, and what he seems to not acknowledge or realize, is that younger people pass this stuff on. Right now, my kids are both home from school, from daycare, because they had cases in their classrooms. Those are not people over 61 years old, but they go home, they bring it to their parents bring it to their older people, and we've got a lot of people dying, 5,000 people dying. So to minimize this, because it's only harming or killing mostly people on the older side, it's just not a science-based way of looking at it. And as you can see, as he's saying this, he's sitting there with no mask on.
If you can say we have an emergency, it's to anybody over the age of 61. I would submit that we need to say an emergency has a finite time period, 60 days. I can live with that.
So the point that Republicans are making is that they think that the emergency powers of the governor should not last forever in a situation like this. Okay, they may have a point about that. That's something that people can agree, disagree about in good faith. But at the same time, you're sitting there with no mask on. You're saying there's no emergency. Like, you should be able to walk and chew gum. You should be able to say, okay, yes, this is an emergency, but also we need to take a look at emergency powers. It doesn't have to be, this is not an emergency, and also you shouldn't have emergency powers anymore.
I would prefer to say 30. Right now we have a red bar at ICU. Why haven't we done something in the last 9 months?
Right. So now he's turning to talking about the ICU situation in Tennessee. Hospitals are filling up, and he wants to know why we haven't done something in 9 months. That is a question for John and his party and the governor. And also, by the way, he's about to talk about ICU capacity, emergency room capacity. And not once is he going to mention the fact that we have an expanded Medicaid in Tennessee, which costs us $1 billion every single year. Do you think we could use that money to keep some of these ICUs open, to increase hospital capacity? The fact that they can have this conversation and not even mention that fact is mind-boggling.
We supposedly have hospitals in our state, and rural hospitals, that have been shut down. Those hospitals had ICU. Why could we not reactivate those things and increase our capacity? In fact, I would submit to you that on an emergency basis, in 9 months, we could build a new hospital.
Yeah, we could build a new hospital. Where have you guys been? And by the way, when you got together for that special session in June, there were a lot of proposals for how to handle this, how to deal with it, how to help people, how to help teachers. And you vetoed all of them. The only thing Republicans were concerned about were liability protection for businesses, for corporations, for, the government, for anybody who potentially could get sued by employees for forcing them into dangerous situations. That's what they passed. That was their concern. And now he wants to turn around and say, hey, why didn't we do more? That's preposterous.
That hasn't happened. When does an emergency stop being an emergency and become routine? And if it's a routine, we, the General Assembly, should be involved in passing laws related to it. Should have been involved in this early.
I mean, we should have been involved in this earlier. Like, you were involved earlier. I mean, who stopped you? You know what I mean? It's like so oblivious or intentionally, willfully ignorant to what has actually transpired over the last 9 months in this state, to act like they didn't have the opportunity. He voted no on every single one of these proposals. And here he is going, we should have done something. I mean, you must be joking.
We had a special session. If all of you remember, we came in and passed laws related to liability. To me, there was no reason we couldn't have tackled a lot more. It may have been an emergency in the beginning, but the fact that it's still ongoing means that we didn't take action when we should have.
Emergency relief
And now,
fund for the 137
this is the Democrats proposing this stuff and Republicans killing it.
school districts.
Tabling motion prevails.
$100 million from the rainy day fund, put it in the emergency fund. These businesses are going under. Thousands of jobs, especially those in the service community. It's what this emergency fund is for. We're in an emergency.
We just cannot risk not having the revenue there.
The same 1.8%.
Yeah, you get the idea. Anyway, so that's the point. Republicans killed all of that stuff. And now we're sitting here going, we should have done more. You people must be joking. Like, are you kidding? Do you think we're this dumb? I mean, I keep going back to, this is why we started the Hollers, so that we could show you clips like that, so you could know what's actually going on, so that when they sit here and say this trash, we can have the receipts and bring them up and show them to you. So that's Rep. Reagan's rant. Completely preposterous. Meanwhile, people are dying all throughout the country, uncontrolled spread. This is what it looks like when you don't have leadership. This is what it looks like when you don't have a strategy, when there's no cohesive, uniform strategy. We don't have a national policy. We don't have a statewide policy. We have county mayors begging for one. Governor Lee does nothing. He's even now saying that not only would he not impose a mask mandate and punt to the county mayors on that, he's also saying he's not going to push people to get the vaccine. There's a difference between requiring the vaccine, which people may have issues with being required to take a vaccine, and promoting the vaccine so that people know it's safe, so that people feel comfortable taking it, so that we can nip this thing in the bud. And Governor Lee is basically saying, not only is he not imposing a mask mandate, he's also not going to encourage people to get the vaccine. You know why? Because he's probably anti-vaccines, because he's one of them. He's one of these extremists, and he's pandering to them, but he also is one of them. That's the thing I think people need to realize. Governor Lee may have run as this nice guy moderate, but he's not. He may say these things nicely, but the things that he's saying are very extreme. And as a result, Vanderbilt has a new poll today saying that mask wearing by parents in Tennessee, less than 60% of parents report wearing a mask when they leave the home. And they also reported that they don't plan on giving their kids the vaccine. So basically what we're saying is Tennessee, because of a lot of misinformation and a lack of leadership at the top, we're in real trouble here, and this thing is not going away anytime soon. I know I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. I know none of this is a surprise, but I'm just trying to give you the information so that you have it, so that when you turn around and talk to people in your life, you know who to point the finger at. Right now, Governor Lee is being a coward, and there might as well be an empty seat in that governor's office. Another thing that happened this week, Representative David Byrd, who's among some really awful people in the legislature, he is probably the worst, apologized on tape to one of 3 women who say he sexually abused them in high school at Wayne County High School when he was their basketball coach. He is now in the hospital, having been airlifted there from Wayne County with COVID-related pneumonia. His wife is also showing symptoms. Not that, I mean, it's tough. I don't wish the disease on anybody. So even David Byrd, I don't wish the disease on David Byrd, but it's hard not to think that there's something karmic about that. And I know a lot of people have seen that and said that, and I'm not going to disagree with you. I do see your comments. I want you all to know that. So Royce is saying, loves what we're doing. Appreciate that very much, Royce. Kim Spoon saying Southern Christianity plays a big part in this cluster. No question about that. There is no question about that. I am not in any way disparaging people of faith or Christianity, but there is definitely a connection between a lot of what we're seeing and faith. People are saying, God has a plan. People are saying that this is God's will. People are saying that they're fighting the election for Trump because that's God's plan. That's what Jenna Ellis just said, that she was operating for Jesus, and that's why she doesn't care that people are saying that she's attacking democracy, because what she's doing is for God. So, again, this is to me a bastardization of what the faith is about, of what Christianity is about what God would want. I mean, claiming to speak for God seems to be pretty sacrilegious in my opinion. But yes, there is definitely a connection. Tennessee is a theocracy in a lot of ways. They openly talk about passing a lot of these laws in that spirit. And, I think that Democrats in general need to do a better job of speaking to people of faith about these topics, meeting them where they are, while also maintaining a separation of church and faith, because what ends up happening is we cede a lot of ground to Republicans in that conversation. And it's such an important conversation on so many levels. 75% of the country identifies as Christian. Tennessee is number 1 in terms of percentage of evangelicals in the country. That's a big part of why Tennessee is so cherry red, while other states are changing around us. Royce says, I feel the numbers have been boosted to push the vaccine. Just me conspiring. I can't go with you on that, Royce. I think the numbers are pretty outrageous. I talk to people in healthcare on the front lines, the head of the healthcare process in Nashville. The hospitals are filling up. and people are dying, and you can't fake that stuff. So, I would encourage you to talk to a frontline healthcare worker and talk to them about what they're seeing. And actually, you just led me to our next clip, which is here is a frontline healthcare worker in Tennessee talking about why Governor Lee needs to do more than he's doing.
Governor Lee, this message is for you. Please listen to your health experts who have advocated for months for a statewide mask mandate.
Harris's video posted by the nonprofit group Forward TN at a time when state health officials report nearly 8,000 new cases since Sunday, and local health experts are warning of another wave from the Thanksgiving holiday.
I mean, these are healthcare workers who are in these hospitals facing this stuff every day. It really, for us to sit around, like, look, I'm not saying that I have firsthand knowledge, I don't, but I'm hearing these stories, I'm seeing their faces, and I'm trusting that the people in these hospitals and the doctors and the healthcare experts and the scientists are telling us the truth about this stuff. And, I don't think the thing that I don't understand on the flip side of this argument is, like, what would be the point of perpetuating this nonsense? You think people want the country to stay closed? I mean, it just doesn't really make any sense to me. People want to get back to work. They want the country to open up. And, a lot of people are hurting and dying. And so we need to, the two things have always been hand in hand. We were never going to open up and get back to normal until we got this virus under control. And the more we keep saying the virus isn't a problem, the more we keep saying this is not a big deal, the more we keep mistrusting what we're hearing, the longer this is going to last. And so, we just have to take it seriously. There's no downside to wearing a mask. There's no downside to taking it seriously. It's just something that we all need to do together, and we need to stop these numbers from going up. 5,000 deaths, you can't really argue with that. So I appreciate you speaking out here. I'm glad. Look, I end up talking to a lot of people I agree with here because, I've invited Republicans on. I don't think I'm that scary, but none of them have taken me up on it. But if you have opinions on here, I want you to be able to share them. I want you to be able to say them out loud without fear of retribution. And I definitely, appreciate that you're willing to say it here because, this should be a place where we have those kind of conversations. And, that's what the Holler needs to be about. In the meantime, other people have started to get the virus. Jenna Ellis has the virus. Rudy Giuliani has the virus. And then in Michigan, somebody just filed a workplace safety complaint against the Michigan House of Representatives for not screening, not making them wear masks. And then Rudy Giuliani shows up with the virus and now people are getting sick. I wonder if we're going to see something like that here in Tennessee, if people start getting sick, where these guys most certainly are not taking this seriously, not wearing the masks the way they should be. And, I wonder if we end up seeing something like that. The problem is they make it so hard around here to actually do anything about it. That's why they passed that liability protection. So, we'll see what happens. But, I do think it's funny, or not funny, but I think she's probably in the right that she's filing that complaint against them for not taking it seriously. Just to shift to the attack on democracy that we're seeing right now, by the way, how amazing has Rudy Giuliani's last 6 weeks been, from getting busted by Borat to Four Seasons Total Landscaping to the hair dye running down his face to farting at a hearing. This guy has had an incredible 6-week run and definitely has been the MVP in the wrong way of 2020. But this attack on democracy we're seeing, which is nothing short of an attack on democracy, and anybody standing with Trump and what he's doing right now should be ashamed of themselves. This is completely unpatriotic. That is not a partisan thing to say. Even Senator Jeff Flake spoke out about it this week, basically saying, I think he did it today, saying that if any self-respecting Republican should be standing up against this, to which Frank Nicely, a senator in Tennessee, said, with Republicans like Jeff Flake, why do we need Democrats? So they've shown us there is no room for rational thinking Republicans in the Republican Party right now. But what's starting to happen, and this was always the point for a lot of them, I believe, Georgia State Senate Republicans say they will work during a legislative session to eliminate at-will absentee voting, require photo ID for absentee voting for cause, and to outlaw drop boxes to crack down on ballot harvesting. So what's happening now, and this was always, I think, the goal for a lot of them. Obviously, Trump wanted to overturn the election, still does. And some of them, for them, that's what they want to see happen. But for a lot of them, they're using these lies, which is what they are, about voter fraud to set up an attack on democracy, an attack on voting rights to make it harder to vote. We've seen that in Tennessee. We're seeing it in Georgia. They're now going to say, oh, see what happened? All those fraudulent votes, even though Biden won. Now we need to crack down. We need to make it harder to vote. We need to suppress the vote. And they're going to start to propose those things. They'll probably even do it here, even though we didn't have any reports like this here. They'll probably do it here anyway, just because they never let a good opportunity go to waste around here. But this was always the point. They need to suppress the vote to enshrine minority rule. That is what Republicans want, because they know the demographics are not changing in their favor. This country is getting browner, blacker, younger. That's what's going to happen over time, over the next 20 to 30 years. You know, a lot of the Fox News watching older audience is going to die off, and this is going to become a bluer and bluer country. And instead of changing their message to appeal to more people, they're instead going to suppress the vote, do what they can to cheat, which is what this is. And what Trump has given them here is an opportunity to crack down on the vote. And that's what's coming. And, you know, I don't know what can be done about it, but I think it all starts with awareness. And yes, Jacob is right. Disenfranchisement, no question. And Kim says, yes, it's emergency session, not about getting TANF to those in need, but protecting their buddies. That's absolutely right. McConnell said, yes, McConnell tried to pass liability protection, still is trying to. That's in this new aid package. But yes, TN, because, you know, obviously that's their priority, is to take care of people that put money in their pockets. Meanwhile, Trump is saying that he hopes Republicans will vote against the NDAA, which funds the military. He says he'll veto it because he wants a termination of Section 230. What he's basically saying there is he wants to take away the protections of Twitter and Facebook so that they are more accountable for free speech, or for the speech that is written on their platforms. But he's basically saying he's not going to fund the military. He's not going to sign off on military funding unless Republicans help him attack these social media platforms he perceives as having gone after him and wounding his ego. Now, I ask you, imagine for a second if Barack Obama had said, I am not going to sign off on military funding unless you help me go after these people who are mean to me. Can you imagine the right-wing conniption that would take place if Obama had done something like that? I mean, this is kind of like my favorite game to play is, what if Obama had done it? What if Obama had done anything that Trump has done? It's hard to even imagine what they would be doing right now. They would be losing their absolute minds. So, you know, that's a fun game to play. What if Obama had done it? But they're pretty serious about attacking democracy and undermining the will of the people. The Texas Attorney General has filed a lawsuit basically trying to undo the result in other states. He's trying to undo the result in Michigan. He's trying to undo the result in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And so this was the Michigan Attorney General's response. She said, it's a publicity stunt. The erosion of confidence isn't a tribute. She basically says he has loyalty to Trump over his country, and she calls it beneath the dignity of the office of the Attorney General. That's Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, has literally filed a lawsuit trying to do away with the result of the election in other states. If that sounds crazy to you, that's because it's crazy. It is not like he knows something and, you know, has found a loophole. No, you cannot do that. That is not possible. And so she is calling him out for that, as well she should. You know, the things that these people are doing, it's just, you know, one thing after the other is absolutely jaw-dropping. And they're saying the quiet parts out loud all over the place. Here was Lara Trump on TV basically saying that Governor Kemp of Georgia needs to overthrow the election because he owes Trump.
right, Janine. Governor Kemp owes his position as governor, quite frankly, to Donald Trump. So, it would be nice if he, reciprocated in some way, not just to make sure that this goes the way that we know it went for the president, but for the American people.
Okay. So she just straight up saying that he got help get you elected or keep your office. You owe him to flip the election. And I mean, she's saying this out loud on Fox News. Like, this is not the stuff you normally say out loud. This is the stuff you like call up Governor Kemp and you say this stuff without a paper trail. You don't text him, you don't email him, none of that. But here she is on TV saying the quiet part out loud. You know who used to do that a lot? Trump used to do that a lot. He used to say the quiet part out loud on TV all the time, as though if he says it out loud in public, it will seem less incriminating. Like, for instance, when he said, Russia, if you're listening, go find Hillary's emails. And then they immediately dumped the emails, which that's a whole story for a different day. But if he had texted Putin and said, go find her emails and dump the emails, and then 2 days later they had dumped the emails, he'd be in prison right now. But because he said it on TV at a press conference, you're telling me that that's not illegal? So that's what they're doing now. They're just saying it on TV instead of texting Governor Kemp, instead of emailing Governor Kemp. They know, okay, if I just say it on Fox News, that's the best way to get my message across. Yes, quid pro quo. Absolutely. This is a quid pro quo. There is no question about that. I see Civil Miller Watkins says Section 5 of the VRA going back to the dismantling of voting rights and voter suppression. Absolutely. Alicia says Obama had to be 1,000 times smarter, harder working, and endlessly more transparent. Blatant racism, no matter how you frame it, 100,000%, no question about it. Their reaction, the Tea Party's reaction to him, their decision to not let him get anything passed, 100% fueled by racism. There were other things, but definitely you will never be able to convince me that wasn't a big part of what was going on and still is. I'm not going to say all Trump voters are racist. I don't believe that, but there's something wrong when all racists are Trump voters. And, you can't find me a KKK member or someone on the alt-right who voted for Biden. So, at a certain point, you got to look at who you're standing next to and wonder why they're standing there. And that's what's going on with a lot of this stuff. But I was blown away by this Lara Trump clip, just having her say that out loud on television as though that's a totally normal thing to do. It's a pretty amazing thing. But a lot of the things that come out of their mouths are amazing. I don't want to harp on too much on this, but this was a clip that I saw today. They were asked why they don't wear masks, and this is what these Trump reporters had to say.
We don't have the vibrational frequency to host that virus.
And I taught her that.
So if you don't have that vibrational frequency right here, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
I mean, so there we have people talking about a vibrational frequency, which is why they can't get the virus. And the woman next to her is like, yes, I taught her that. And they're saying it with a straight face. And we're all we're having conversations about how do we reach out. But at a certain point, I mean, what can you say to that? What can you say to that? It's hard to reach out when we're just operating on such different planets. I mean, there's no talking to that. There's no talking that off the ledge. There's no appealing to their better angels there. I know that's an extreme example. And I'm not saying we shouldn't try to have conversations with people we disagree with. We absolutely should. But I'm saying we do need to realize how far gone a lot of this stuff is. And I think we need to stop. What ends up happening when you have it in your mind that, if we just moderate a little bit, or if we just walk towards them a little bit, they'll reach out and hold our hand and we'll walk off into the sunset together. You end up not just doing the right thing and letting the chips fall where they may. And we need to just do the right thing and let the chips fall where they may in this country. That's what we need to do. So that means making sure everybody has health coverage, raising the minimum wage, legalizing marijuana, a lot of these things these are popular progressive positions, but they are popular. And, I think we need to stop worrying about so much about what might rub people the wrong way on the extremes and focus on doing the right thing and showing some leadership, like a national mask mandate, a statewide mask mandate. If Governor Lee had imposed one and, people had voted against him from the extreme right because of that, that should be okay with a leader. It is not leadership to worry so much about upsetting somebody, and as long as you do the right thing, that's what leadership is. So, I'm worried that we're too often having the conversation about reaching people that think that you can't get the disease because you have the wrong vibration, and less about just doing the right thing to make sure people are covered. Tracy says, I think anyone that refuses vaccine should have to waive medical treatment they could have been vaccinated against. That's a little far. I see what you're saying, but we're going to be at a point here. I don't think there's going to be a government mandated vaccine. I don't think that's where we're going. There are now 2 bills in the Tennessee legislature that are giving people an out for not taking the vaccine, so that they can't be mandated by the government to take a vaccine. I don't think that's where we're going. I don't think it's going to be government mandated. Maybe, but I think that if enough people, look, if you want the vaccine and you go get it and somebody else didn't get it, theoretically you should be safe. So, I don't see it being like everybody line up, you have to get this vaccine now. I think most people are going to want to take it, and hopefully if enough people take it, it will become less and less of a problem. But, I do see what you're saying. I think that Republicans are showing, again, a lack of leadership by introducing bills to appeal to anti-vaxxer people who, are already fear-mongering about the vaccine, instead of focusing on showing leadership and saying, no, we need to make sure that, we're heading in the right direction. It's just a choice that they're making. They're passing bills against laws that don't exist yet. And that is counterproductive. That is not taking us in the right direction. And that is your Tennessee Republican supermajority in a nutshell. Kim Spoon says she's concerned about the mental health of half of this country. I think it's always fair to be concerned. It's always fair to be concerned is what I'll say to that. If you guys have anything else you want me to talk about, definitely feel free to chime in and comment. I appreciate you all being with me for this half hour. We call it the Holler Hour, but we don't always go that long. A couple of the things I just want to mention. There was the marijuana bill that a lot of Republicans voted against. Rep. Mark Green, who I lost to, voted against it. Rep. Tim Burchett voted against it. All the Republicans voted against marijuana decriminalization. It's marijuana decriminalization, which is what we absolutely need to do. Too many people are locked up for nonviolent drug offenses. We're missing out on a lot of money in Tennessee by not doing this. Other states are doing it all around us. And the way that they're doing it is through ballot initiatives, which we don't even allow in Tennessee, again, because Republicans are so afraid of democracy and letting people vote. They don't actually want to hear what people have to say. Meanwhile, in Nashville itself, they have ballot initiatives, and every time Republicans in Nashville have something on they want to get off their chest, they put it on the ballot, just like they tried to do with this property tax repeal. So they love ballot initiatives where they're in the minority, because that way they can cause trouble. But where they're in the majority, they don't want to let the people have a say. And I guarantee you, if we had ballot initiatives for marijuana decriminalization and for Medicaid expansion in Tennessee, they would pass with flying colors and they would help a lot of people. So we need ballot initiatives in this state badly. And that is something that nobody who cares about democracy should be opposed to. Ballot initiatives. I would like to see somebody carry legislation in Tennessee to put ballot initiatives back if they were ever there. I don't know if they were ever there, but we need ballot initiatives in Tennessee. Ask your representatives, do you want ballot initiatives? If they say no, they don't actually care what the people have to say. Same goes for fair districting in Tennessee. Our districts are ridiculously gerrymandered. We need fair districting with an independent commission. Both sides should want that. I'm not just saying that because we live in a Republican-controlled state. Democrat-controlled states should have that too. We shouldn't have politicians picking their voters. We should have voters picking politicians. And just as a final thing here before we sign off, let's just show this extremely petty clip from our child in chief when he had a wrestler that he was giving the Presidential Medal of Freedom to. This is what he said.
He won 117 consecutive matches and lost only one. Well, in politics, I won 2. So I'm 2-0, and that's pretty good too.
So, I mean, this guy, what can you say? Such a child, made it about him. You know, this wrestler is there to have his moment. Trump lies, makes it about him. He's just not a good person, folks. He's not a good person. And if you're standing with him as he attacks our country, shame on you. See you. Oh, before I say see you on Thursday, tomorrow night, Wednesday, 7 p.m., and Thursday, 7 p.m., join us for the Tennessee Democratic Party Chairs Forums here on the Holler, co-hosted by us in Change Tennessee. We're going to hear from all the chairs race candidates right here. So join us 7 p.m. tomorrow night and Thursday night. Join us here on the Holler. And then also Tuesdays and Thursdays, you know where to find us. Subscribe and chip in if you can, tnholler.com.